"You're just a paycheck to me," my wife smirked, and those 6 words detonated in our marble-appointed kitchen like a precision-guided missile, not because they were completely unexpected. I'd been watching our marriage disintegrate for months through a series of financial red flags I'd been too trusting to properly investigate. But because she delivered them with such calculated cruelty while reviewing credit card statements on her iPad, sitting at our granite breakfast bar in our Westchester County home overlooking the Hudson Valley, her voice carrying that particular tone of dismissive finality that made me realize she'd been rehearsing this moment, planning this humiliation, probably discussing it with him during their expensive dinners and weekend getaways I'd unknowingly funded through our joint accounts, while believing she was networking for her interior design business and building the career I'd always supported with unwavering financial backing and emotional encouragement. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Jonathan Mitchell. I'm 45 years old, and I own Mitchell Financial Advisory, a boutique wealth management firm in downtown White Plains that manages portfolios for entertainment industry executives and successful entrepreneurs, the kind of business that had provided my wife, Catherine, and me with a luxurious lifestyle in our colonial home with the infinity pool, the wine cellar, and the kind of financial freedom that lets you book spontaneous trips to Martha's Vineyard without checking your investment returns first. But apparently none of that success was enough to make my wife see me as anything more than a convenient funding source for the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to, while systematically planning my replacement with someone who excited her in ways that steady financial security apparently couldn't. Catherine, 42, worked as a high-end interior designer for celebrity clients and wealthy executives, brilliant at creating spaces that appeared in luxury magazines and commanded 6-figure fees, ambitious in ways I'd always admired and financially supported, the kind of woman who could transform a client's vision into reality and then come home to help our 17-year-old son Marcus with his college application essays. And for 19 years of marriage, I'd believed we were the couple who'd successfully built an empire together, who still held hands during our evening walks around the neighborhood and shared inside jokes during boring charity galas where we networked with Westchester County's elite social circle. Our life had what I thought was an unshakable foundation: morning coffee together on our sun-drenched patio before Marcus woke up, family dinners at least 4 nights a week despite our demanding schedules, weekend adventures exploring the Hamptons or attending exclusive art gallery openings in Manhattan, annual trips to Europe where we'd rediscover each other away from business pressures, in a social circle of successful couples who'd known us since our early 30s, back when we were still building our respective businesses and dreaming about the financial independence we'd eventually achieve through mutual sacrifice and shared ambition that had apparently become nothing more than convenient cash flow in Catherine's increasingly mercenary calculation. I'd trusted Catherine completely, the kind of bone-deep trust that comes from watching someone navigate New York's competitive design industry with integrity, from seeing how she treated our son, our friends, the contractors who worked on our house renovations. And I'd never had reason to question that trust until subtle changes started creeping in like stress fractures in a foundation, so gradual I almost didn't notice them until they accumulated into a pattern that made my stomach tighten with unspoken dread every time she walked through our front door carrying stories about new clients who required increasing amounts of personal attention and after-hours consultation that seemed to generate substantial expenses but surprisingly little documented income for her supposedly thriving design business. The first sign was her sudden obsession with expensive personal shopping, buying designer clothes and accessories that went far beyond her usual professional wardrobe, spending thousands on beauty treatments and spa services that she claimed were necessary for maintaining her image with high-end clients, always with explanations that sounded reasonable but felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced them during her drive through Westchester's winding roads, while planning her next deception and calculating how much she could spend without triggering my attention to the growing discrepancies in our household budget that my financial advisor training should have caught months earlier. Then came the phone behavior changes, The device that used to sit casually on kitchen counters suddenly became something she guarded like state secrets, carrying it everywhere, taking it to the bathroom, keeping it face down during family dinners, the soft buzz of notifications making her glance at the screen with an expression I'd never seen before, something between anticipation and guilt that made me realize I was watching my wife become a stranger. While she claimed to be building her business through networking events and client development activities that required increasingly frequent overnight trips to Manhattan and the Hamptons for design conferences that never seemed to generate any actual business results despite the substantial expenses they incurred on our joint credit card. The name Derek started appearing in her client stories around this time. Always in professional context, Derek had connections in the entertainment industry that could expand her business. Derek was helping her develop a new marketing strategy for high-net-worth clients. Derek suggested this exclusive networking event where she could meet potential customers, and I filed his name away as just another business contact until I realized how often she mentioned him, how her voice carried a different energy when she talked about their collaboration, a breathless excitement and admiration that reminded me of how she used to talk about me during our early dating years, when everything felt electric and full of possibility, before I'd become nothing more than the reliable financial foundation that enabled her to pursue whatever excitement she was finding with Derek and his supposedly valuable business connection. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in April, when Catherine presented me with credit card statements showing over $15,000 in charges for what she claimed were business development expenses, and when I questioned the luxury hotel bills and expensive restaurant charges that seemed excessive even for client entertainment, she looked at me with cold calculation and delivered her devastating assessment. "Jonathan, let's not pretend this is about business expenses. You're questioning me because you're insecure about your own relevance in this relationship, but the truth is you're just a paycheck to me, a reliable source of funding for the life I want to live. And if you can't handle supporting my career growth without micromanaging every expense, then maybe we need to reconsider what this marriage is really about, because I'm building something bigger than your small-minded financial concern." The words hung in the air like poison, and as I looked at my wife of 19 years, I realized that the trusting, generous husband who'd supported every business venture and personal dream was dying, slowly being replaced by someone harder, more calculating, someone who understood that if Catherine wanted to reduce me to nothing more than a convenient funding source, while she pursued excitement with Derek using my money, I'd need to become far more strategic than generous, far more methodical than trusting. And as I sat there in our kitchen, processing the complete destruction of everything I'd believed about our partnership, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to use my expertise in financial forensics to investigate exactly how my wife had been spending our money during her supposed business development activities. And when I gathered irrefutable evidence of her systematic theft and betrayal, the woman who thought I was just a paycheck would discover that the predictable husband she'd underestimated controlled every financial resource she'd been stealing, and her sister's upcoming wedding reception would become the perfect stage for revealing that the paycheck she'd taken for granted was about to stop flowing permanently, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of treating the man who'd given her everything like nothing more than a convenient ATM she could manipulate and dismiss, while planning his replacement with someone who excited her more than 19 years of unwavering financial support and emotional devotion ever could. The opportunity to uncover Catherine's systematic financial fraud came the following Tuesday morning when she rushed out for what she claimed was an urgent client meeting in Manhattan, leaving behind her MacBook Pro open on our shared home office desk, the screen still glowing with an email thread that would destroy every lie she'd told me over the past year. And as I stood there staring at the device that contained the digital fingerprints of her betrayal, I realized this was the moment of truth I'd been both dreading and desperately needing, the chance to either restore my faith in our marriage or confirm the devastating suspicions that had been eating away at my sanity since her cruel declaration that I was nothing more than a paycheck to her. Before we continue, Please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. As a wealth management advisor with over 20 years of experience in forensic accounting and fraud investigation, I developed an instinct for financial discrepancies that had helped me protect millions in client assets from embezzlement and systematic theft. And those same analytical skills were now screaming at me to investigate the laptop sitting innocently on our mahogany desk, its password protection disabled in the comfortable assumption that her reliable, trusting husband would never violate her privacy or question the expensive lifestyle she'd been funding with our joint accounts, while claiming to build her interior design business through networking events and client development activities that I now suspected were elaborate cover stories for the most expensive betrayal of our 19-year marriage. I approached the device with the methodical precision I used for complex financial audits, my hands steady despite the sick feeling in my stomach that always accompanied the discovery of systematic fraud. Except this wasn't a client's embezzlement scheme. This was my wife's double life, and whatever I found would either free me from paranoid thoughts or provide the unassailable evidence I needed to protect myself and Marcus from the woman who'd reduced our marriage to a convenient funding arrangement, while she pursued excitement with Derek, using money I'd earned through decades of building Mitchell Financial Advisory from a one-person operation into one of Westchester County's most respected wealth management firms. The laptop was still logged into her email accounts and financial applications, browser history showing recent searches for luxury real estate in the Hamptons, expensive couples vacation packages, and most damning, multiple visits to divorce attorney websites with saved bookmarks for maximizing settlement outcomes and protecting assets during separation, painting a clear picture of someone who'd been planning her exit strategy while using my money to fund the relationship that would replace our marriage. Once, she'd extracted maximum financial benefit from the man she now saw as nothing more than a reliable income source with no emotional value beyond his earning capacity. I opened her email application and immediately found a thread with Derek Morrison labeled "Our Future Plans" that contained 8 months of correspondence revealing the most calculated betrayal I'd ever encountered, starting with supposedly innocent business discussions that quickly escalated to romantic planning, financial strategizing, and detailed discussions about how to maximize her divorce settlement while minimizing my access to the assets I'd spent 2 decades accumulating through careful investment and business growth, their emails reading like a military campaign designed to extract maximum wealth from the husband who'd made their relationship financially possible through his unwitting funding of their romantic getaways disguised as professional development activity. The financial evidence was devastating in its comprehensiveness. Spreadsheets showing every penny she'd spent on their affair, from luxury hotel suites at the Plaza and the St. Regis to expensive dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard and the Hamptons, all categorized as business expenses and client entertainment, while she systematically documented my income sources, investment accounts, and business assets with the precision of someone preparing for financial warfare, a planning so thorough that she'd even researched the most aggressive divorce attorneys in New York and calculated different settlement scenarios based on various strategies for presenting me as an emotionally absent workaholic husband who'd prioritized business success over family relationships. The most damaging discovery came when I accessed a hidden folder containing intimate photos and videos that Catherine had been sharing with Derek. Images taken in our master bedroom, our vacation homes, even our Martha's Vineyard rental property, all time-stamped during periods when I'd been traveling for business or working late at the office. The sheer audacity of her betrayal so complete that she'd been conducting her affair in every space I'd provided for our family, while simultaneously planning to take half of everything I'd built and start fresh with the man who'd helped her calculate the most profitable way to destroy our marriage, while maintaining her comfortable lifestyle throughout the transition from wife to wealthy divorcee. Within 4 hours of discovering Catherine's digital evidence, I had contacted 2 professionals whose expertise would transform my growing suspicions into unassailable legal protection. Patricia Goldman, a divorce attorney whose reputation for handling high-asset cases with surgical precision had made her the go-to choice for New York's financial elite when marriages imploded, and Amanda Richardson, a former FBI forensic accountant turned private investigator, whose specialty in marital asset investigations had helped dozens of successful businessmen protect their wealth from predatory spouses who'd turned divorce into a profit-maximizing enterprise. Both professionals listening to my story with the detached expertise of people who'd seen every variation of marital fraud and understood exactly how to build cases that were impossible to challenge or dismiss in court. Patricia's assessment was devastating in its clarity. Jonathan, this isn't just adultery. It's systematic financial fraud conducted with your money while she prepared to claim you were an emotionally neglectful husband who prioritized business over family. And in New York, while we're no fault, judges absolutely consider conduct when dividing assets, especially when one spouse has been systematically stealing marital funds to support an affair, while documenting the other spouse's assets for strategic advantage during divorce proceedings that were planned without their knowledge or consent, which constitutes marital waste and financial abuse that will significantly impact any settlement in your favor. Amanda outlined an investigation strategy that would provide court-admissible evidence, GPS tracking device legally installed on Catherine's jointly owned BMW since it was registered in both our names, professional photography of her meetings with Derek using telephoto lenses and timestamp technology, comprehensive financial auditing to trace every fraudulent expense through bank records and credit card statements, digital forensics to recover deleted communications and financial documents, and most importantly, immediate implementation of asset protection strategies that would prevent Catherine from accessing or hiding marital wealth, while preserving my ability to operate my business and support Marcus during what was about to become the most expensive legal battle of my life. The GPS tracker arrived via Amazon 2 days later, a device smaller than a matchbox that I installed under Catherine's BMW during her morning yoga session, my hands steady despite the surreal nature of what I was doing, transforming myself from trusting husband into detective investigating the woman I'd promised to love and protect. The irony not lost on me that her wellness routine had provided the perfect cover for my counterintelligence operation against her systematic betrayal of our marriage vows and financial partnership, that she'd been conducting with the precision of a corporate takeover, designed to maximize her profit while minimizing any risk to her comfortable lifestyle. That evening, when Catherine returned from her client consultation, with her practiced smile and apologetic explanation about running late due to unexpected design complications, I watched her check her phone immediately for Derek's messages, seeing her face light up with an expression of joy she hadn't shown me in months. And I realized that the trusting, generous husband who'd supported every business venture and personal dream was completely dead, replaced by someone harder, more calculating, someone who understood that if Catherine wanted to reduce our 19-year marriage to a financial transaction, while she pursued excitement with Derek using my money, then I would treat this like the most important wealth protection case of my career, documenting every theft, every lie, every betrayal with the precision that had made Mitchell Financial Advisory one of the most respected firms in Westchester County. And when I finally revealed the truth about her systematic deception, it wouldn't be in a private confrontation she could spin or deny. It would be at her sister Rebecca's wedding reception, where 3 generations of family would witness the complete destruction of her carefully constructed image as a successful businesswoman and devoted wife, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of treating the man who'd provided everything for her comfortable lifestyle like nothing more than a paycheck she could manipulate and dismiss, while planning his replacement with someone who excited her more than 2 decades of unwavering financial support and emotional devotion ever could. And as I sat across from her at dinner, watching Catherine describe her latest business breakthrough with Derek, while our family photos hung on the walls behind her, I knew that the woman who thought I was just a paycheck was about to discover that paychecks could be permanently canceled by the man who'd been writing them for 19 years. And her sister's wedding celebration would become the perfect stage for revealing that the reliable funding source she'd taken for granted was controlled by someone far more strategic and ruthless than the predictable husband she'd so casually dismissed, while stealing his money to finance her own systematic betrayal of everything we'd built together. The first strategic decision I made that night, sitting alone in my home office while Catherine performed her nightly ritual of texting Derek about their next expensive rendezvous funded by my earnings, was that I wouldn't confront her emotionally, wouldn't demand explanations, or ask the desperate questions that devastated husbands typically ask when they discover their wives have reduced them to nothing more than convenient funding sources. Instead, if she wanted to turn our 19-year marriage into a calculated financial extraction operation, while she pursued excitement with Derek using my money, then I would treat this like the most complex wealth protection case of my career, implementing asset safeguards with the methodical precision that had made Mitchell Financial Advisory one of New York's most trusted firms, ensuring that, when the truth finally emerged, it wouldn't be in a private moment she could manipulate or deny, but at her sister Rebecca's wedding reception, where 4 generations of family would witness her complete destruction, while I simultaneously activated financial protocols that would leave her with nothing but the consequences of her systematic betrayal. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My wealth management background had taught me that emotional decisions create catastrophic financial losses, and I couldn't afford any weakness in what was about to become the most important asset protection strategy of my life. So the following morning, after dropping Marcus at school and maintaining my facade of normalcy, I drove to Patricia Goldman's law office in downtown Manhattan, where her reputation for dismantling predatory divorce schemes with surgical precision had earned her a corner suite overlooking Central Park, all marble and mahogany, designed to intimidate opposing counsel, while reassuring clients that their attorney possessed both the resources and ruthlessness necessary to win battles that could determine whether they emerged from divorce financially intact or completely destroyed by spouses who turned marriage into a profit-maximizing enterprise designed to extract maximum wealth from trusting partners who'd spent decades building what their wives planned to steal through systematic deception and calculated legal manipulation. Patricia emerged from her conference room precisely on time. Early 60s, silver hair in a power chignon, navy suit that projected competence and authority. And when she gestured me toward the leather chairs with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan's financial district, I knew I'd found the right advocate for what was about to unfold. Someone who understood that successful entrepreneurs didn't just build wealth, they protected it from people who'd use intimate relationships as weapons to steal what they'd never earned through their own dedication and sacrifice, especially when that theft was disguised as legitimate business expenses and conducted with such calculated precision that it constituted systematic marital fraud rather than simple adultery that could be dismissed or rationalized by opposing counsel seeking to maximize their client's settlement through emotional manipulation and false claims of neglect. "Show me everything," she said, activating a digital recorder with practiced efficiency, and I laid out the evidence methodically: Catherine's laptop discovery, Derek's emails, the financial spreadsheets, the asset documentation, the divorce attorney research. Watching Patricia's expression remained professionally neutral, even as she made notes that would eventually become the blueprint for Catherine's complete legal and financial destruction. A platinum pen moving across yellow legal pads with the precision of a surgeon, planning an operation that would fundamentally reshape someone's entire future, while protecting my business and personal assets from a woman who'd been systematically documenting my wealth, while using it to fund her affair with breathtaking arrogance and calculated cruelty that demonstrated complete contempt for the man she'd reduced to nothing more than a reliable paycheck she could manipulate and dismiss while planning his replacement. When I finished, Patricia leaned back in her leather chair, and within 24 hours, I was coordinating with Amanda Richardson, a former FBI forensic accountant, whose transition to private investigation had been motivated by her expertise in financial fraud and her understanding of how systematic theft could be disguised as legitimate expenses, and whose reputation for building unassailable cases made her worth the $600 hourly rate that would soon become a regular expense in my quest for evidence so comprehensive that no opposing attorney could explain it away as misunderstandings between spouses going through marital difficulties, while one partner systematically documented and stole the other's wealth with premeditated precision that would be impossible to deny or dismiss in court proceedings. Amanda's investigation plan was military in its thoroughness. GPS tracking device legally installed on Catherine's BMW to document her actual activities versus claimed business meeting. Professional photography of her meetings with Derek using telephoto lenses and timestamp technology that would be admissible in court. Comprehensive financial auditing to trace every fraudulent expense through bank records and credit card statements. Digital forensics to recover deleted communications and financial documents that would reveal the full scope of their relationship and exit strategy. And most importantly, immediate coordination with my accountants and financial advisors to implement asset protection strategies that would prevent Catherine from accessing or claiming any portion of my business or investment portfolios, while preserving my ability to support Marcus during what was about to become the most expensive legal battle of my life, one that would determine whether the woman who'd dismissed me as just a paycheck would discover that paychecks could be permanently canceled by the man who'd been writing them for 19 years. The asset protection implementation began immediately with Patricia's corporate attorneys, helping me restructure Mitchell Financial Advisory's ownership through multi-class share structures and irrevocable trusts that would make it legally impossible for Catherine to claim direct business equity. Presenting these changes to my partners as standard succession planning and tax optimization strategies they readily accepted without question, completely unaware that these were defensive measures against a predatory spouse rather than routine business growth protocol, while simultaneously establishing separate protected accounts for Marcus's college expenses that would be immune from any settlement demands Catherine might make during divorce proceedings that would soon commence with devastating evidence of her systematic financial fraud and marital asset theft. The GPS tracker went operational within 48 hours, immediately revealing the scope of Catherine's deception as her claimed client meetings in Manhattan consistently led to Derek's Upper West Side apartment, luxury hotels in Midtown, and expensive restaurants where Amanda's financial forensics team documented every fraudulent charge on our joint credit cards, building an irrefutable timeline of systematic theft that showed over $53,000 in marital assets had been used to fund romantic getaways, intimate dinners, shopping sprees, and expensive gifts for Derek, while Catherine convinced me that I was nothing more than a boring, predictable husband who should feel grateful that she tolerated my financial support for her supposed business development activities that were actually elaborate cover stories for the most calculated betrayal of our 19-year marriage. The emotional breaking point came during a Saturday morning when Marcus and I were reviewing his early decision college applications, and he asked with devastating maturity, "Dad, is Mom planning to leave us? She's been acting really strange, always secretive about her phone calls, and she asked me weird questions about which parent I'd want to live with if you guys split up, which seems like something you only ask if you're already planning to make it happen. And I don't want our family to break apart, because I need both parents to be honest with me instead of pretending everything's normal when it obviously isn't, especially when she keeps talking about this Derek guy like he's some kind of business mentor who understands her in ways that apparently you don't." The phrase, "already planning to make it happen," confirmed that Catherine had been preparing Marcus for the divorce she was orchestrating while using my money to fund her affair with Derek, and I realized that my 17-year-old son was mature enough to recognize his mother's systematic deception. While I'd been enabling it by providing the financial resources, she needed to pursue her betrayal with such calculated precision and breathtaking arrogance that she'd actually involved our child in her exit strategy planning, making him complicit in her manipulation, while she convinced him that his father was somehow inadequate compared to the exciting new man who was helping her plan our family's destruction. I looked at Marcus's concerned face and made him a promise that crystallized my resolve. Son, whatever happens between your mother and me, you will always be my priority, and I will always protect our relationship and your future from anyone who would use you as a pawn in their selfish games. Because some people change in ways that hurt everyone around them. But that doesn't mean you have to accept being manipulated or pretend that wrong behavior is acceptable just because it's disguised as personal growth or business development. And when the truth comes out about what's really been happening, you'll understand that everything I'm doing now is to protect what actually matters in our family, rather than enabling someone who sees us as nothing more than convenient resources to be exploited. That night, after Marcus was asleep and Catherine was too exhausted from client work to spend time together, scrolling her phone with that secretive smile while probably planning her next expensive getaway with Derek, I stood in my home office surrounded by financial documents and legal strategies, and made my final mental shift from defense to offense, realizing that protection wasn't enough. Catherine needed to face consequences that would expose her systematic deception not just in legal documents, but in front of everyone whose opinion she'd spent years cultivating through careful image management as the successful businesswoman and devoted wife, ensuring that her cruel declaration that I was just a paycheck would be remembered as the moment she revealed her own character so completely that no amount of social positioning could ever restore the respect and reputation she was about to lose at Rebecca's wedding reception. Her 4 generations of family would witness the complete destruction of her carefully constructed identity, while I simultaneously activated the final phase of financial safeguards that would leave her with nothing but the consequences of treating the man who provided everything for her comfortable lifestyle like nothing more than a convenient funding source she could manipulate and dismiss, while planning his replacement with someone who excited her more than 19 years of unwavering dedication, sacrifice, and the kind of steady financial security that had made her betrayal financially possible in the first place. The perfect stage for Catherine's destruction presented itself at her sister Rebecca's wedding reception, an elegant celebration at the Westchester Country Club, where 4 generations of family would gather to witness what they believed would be a joyous union, but would instead become the most spectacular financial and personal downfall in their social circle's recent memory. And as I adjusted my platinum cufflinks in the club's marble-appointed men's room, I realized that the wife who had so casually dismissed me as just a paycheck was about to discover that her reliable funding source had spent weeks orchestrating the most comprehensive asset freeze and public humiliation in Westchester County's elite social history, a revelation that would destroy her carefully constructed image in front of everyone whose opinion she'd spent her entire adult life cultivating through strategic positioning and careful reputation management, that was about to crumble when she learned that paychecks could be permanently canceled by the man who'd been writing them for 19 years. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. For weeks, I had played the supportive brother-in-law, helping coordinate the reception logistics, ensuring the country club's AV system would accommodate my presentation, even volunteering to give a toast honoring the importance of financial partnership in marriage, all while Amanda Richardson's team finalized the devastating evidence compilation that now resided on a discreet USB drive in my jacket pocket, and Patricia Goldman's legal team prepared the emergency court orders that would be executed the moment my presentation concluded, transforming Catherine from respected interior designer and devoted wife into the family pariah, whose systematic theft had been conducted with such breathtaking arrogance that she'd actually used our son's college fund to pay for romantic getaways with Derek, while convincing everyone that I was nothing more than a boring, predictable husband who should feel grateful that she tolerated my financial support for her supposed business development activities that were actually elaborate cover stories for the most expensive betrayal of our marriage. I arrived at the country club precisely at 6:30. Wearing a custom-tailored charcoal gray suit that projected quiet confidence and authority, carrying myself with the bearing of a man who held devastating secrets and was finally ready to reveal them, my eyes immediately finding Catherine across the elegant ballroom, stunning in a midnight blue silk dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, coordinating final preparations with the gracious efficiency that had made her the family's unofficial event planner, completely unaware that her boring, methodical husband was about to transform her sister's wedding celebration into the most memorable and devastating family gathering in their social circle's history, one that would expose her systematic financial fraud with the same precision I'd used to build Mitchell Financial Advisory into one of Westchester County's most respected wealth management firms. The reception unfolded with the refined elegance that our social circle could orchestrate. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light across polished marble floors, fresh floral arrangements of white roses and peonies, a string quartet playing classical selection, 4 generations of family circulating through the private ballroom, discussing upcoming charity events and summer house plans, while uniformed staff served hors d'oeuvres prepared by the club's award-winning chef, none of them aware they were about to witness the spectacular destruction of the family member they'd all admired for her successful business and seemingly perfect marriage that had apparently been built on a foundation of systematic lies and financial exploitation disguised as entrepreneurial ambition and professional networking, that required increasingly expensive trips and client entertainment funded entirely by the husband she'd reduced to nothing more than a convenient ATM. My moment came during the traditional toast segment, when family members would speak about the importance of commitment and partnership in marriage, and I approached the small podium positioned near the ballroom's built-in AV system, testing the microphone while Catherine beamed at me from across the gathering, probably proud that her reliable husband was finally participating more actively in family tradition, completely unaware that the man she'd dismissed as just a paycheck was about to deliver the most devastating financial revelation in family history, one that would expose every lie she'd told and every dollar she'd stolen with the kind of methodical precision that would make this moment legendary in Westchester society circles for decades to come. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the ballroom as conversations died and heads turned. I'd like to speak about financial partnership, trust, and what happens when one person in that partnership decides the other is nothing more than a reliable funding source, qualities that Rebecca and David clearly understand, and that my wife Catherine has been exploring in her own unique way through her recent business development activities that have taught all of us so much about the creative ways successful people can leverage marital assets to pursue exciting new partnerships that transcend traditional boundaries of professional collaboration, regardless of the impact on family financial security or the trust that makes such partnerships possible in the first place. Catherine's champagne flute stopped halfway to her lips, her eyes meeting mine across the room with the first flicker of genuine fear. But she was trapped by social convention and family expectations, unable to stop what was about to unfold without creating an even bigger scene, her smile becoming strained as I clicked the remote and the ballroom's large display screens flickered to life with a title slide that read, Catherine's Business Development, a forensic analysis of strategic investment and partnership return. The presentation began with a comprehensive financial breakdown showing $53,000 in charges to our joint accounts over 8 months, each expense categorized and timestamped with forensic precision, revealing a pattern of systematic theft disguised as business development that had funded luxury hotel suites, expensive dinners, weekend getaways, and personal shopping sprees, all documented with the same methodical approach I'd used for complex fraud investigations, except this time the embezzler was my wife, and the stolen funds had been used to finance her affair with Derek, while she convinced me that I was nothing more than a boring, predictable husband whose only value was his ability to provide the financial resources she needed to pursue her authentic self through expensive wellness retreats and professional development opportunities that were actually romantic getaways where she mocked my sexual performance and planned my financial destruction. The images continued with hotel receipts from the Plaza, the St. Regis and exclusive Hamptons resorts, restaurant bills for intimate dinners at Michelin-starred establishments, spa treatments for 2 people, romantic weekend packages, each piece of evidence building an undeniable narrative of systematic deception, funded entirely with money I'd earned through 20 years of building my wealth management practice. while Catherine convinced everyone that I was supporting her entrepreneurial spirit and professional growth, when in reality, I was unknowingly funding the most elaborate and expensive betrayal in our family's history, conducted with such calculated cruelty that she'd involved our son in her exit strategy planning, while using his college fund to pay for romantic getaways with her lover, who was helping her calculate the most profitable way to destroy our marriage through divorce proceedings I was never supposed to discover. Then came the email evidence. Catherine's own words displayed on the massive screens for 4 generations of family to read. Jonathan is just a paycheck to me, a reliable funding source for the lifestyle I deserve while I build something real with Derek. And the divorce settlement will give me enough to start fresh without any suburban obligations or boring husband holding me back. And Derek understands that I need excitement and passion, not just financial security from someone who thinks providing money is the same as providing love. Her casual dismissal and mercenary calculations displayed in high-definition clarity for everyone whose opinion she'd spent years cultivating through careful image management as the devoted wife and successful businesswoman who had achieved the perfect balance of professional success and family commitment. That was actually just elaborate performance designed to hide systematic marital fraud. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. 150 people frozen in horrified fascination as I systematically destroyed Catherine's reputation with her own documented evidence, watching her parents' faces crumble in disbelief and disappointment, her siblings exchange shocked glances, Rebecca staring at her sister with a look of complete betrayal, her childhood friends realizing they'd been witnessing an elaborate deception, that the woman they'd trusted and celebrated had been conducting systematic financial fraud while using family gatherings to maintain her cover story, describing her reliable husband's unwavering support as nothing more than convenient funding for her affair with a man who'd helped her plan the most profitable exit strategy from the marriage that had made her comfortable lifestyle possible in the first place. Marcus, sitting at the family table, looked directly at me with an expression that was somehow both heartbroken and proud. And when he spoke, his 17-year-old voice carried across the silent ballroom with devastating clarity. So all those business trips and client meetings were just you stealing Dad's money to cheat on him while making him feel like he wasn't good enough. You used my college fund to pay for hotel rooms with Derek while telling everyone that Dad was too focused on work to understand your needs, when really you were just planning to take half his business and leave us both. Catherine tried to speak, a strangled sound escaping her lips, but no words came, just broken gasps that conveyed the magnitude of her shock and humiliation, while her father stood slowly from his chair, his voice shaking with controlled fury. Catherine, you've stolen from your family, lied to everyone who loves you, and betrayed the man who supported your dreams for 19 years, all while using our family gatherings to maintain your pretense of being a devoted wife and successful businesswoman. And I am ashamed that my daughter could be capable of such calculated cruelty and systematic theft disguised as entrepreneurial ambition. At that moment, I pulled out my phone and announced to the stunned gathering, since Catherine has made it clear that I'm just a paycheck to her, I've taken the liberty of canceling that paycheck permanently. As of this moment, all joint accounts have been frozen by emergency court order. All credit cards have been canceled, and Catherine's access to any marital assets has been permanently revoked pending divorce proceedings that will begin Monday morning with full documentation of systematic marital fraud, asset theft, and financial abuse that will ensure she receives the minimum settlement allowed by New York law while facing potential criminal charges for systematic theft, conducted with premeditated intent to defraud the man who provided everything for her comfortable lifestyle. The devastating finality of those words echoed through the ballroom as Catherine collapsed into her chair, her midnight blue silk dress now seeming to weigh her down like chains, her carefully styled hair disheveled as she instinctively tried to hide her face from the 150 horrified, judging eyes now fixed solely on her. A transformation from confident socialite to financial pariah, complete in less than 20 minutes of systematic evidence presentation that had exposed every lie she'd told, and every dollar she'd stolen with the kind of comprehensive documentation that would make this moment legendary in Westchester County's elite social circles. As the evening, Catherine Mitchell learned that treating her husband like just a paycheck would result in the permanent cancellation of every financial resource she'd taken for granted while planning his destruction with breathtaking arrogance and calculated cruelty that had now cost her everything she'd actually valued once the consequences became permanent and irreversible, leaving her with nothing but the ruins of her reputation and the bitter knowledge that the boring, predictable husband. The silence that followed my departure from the Westchester Country Club wasn't empty. It was pregnant with the systematic consequences I'd spent months preparing. And as I drove through the Hudson Valley's winding roads toward the hotel suite I'd reserved days earlier, I felt the profound transformation from the naive husband who'd believed Catherine's dismissive declaration that I was just a paycheck to the architect of her complete financial and social destruction. Knowing that by morning the emergency court orders would be fully executed, the divorce papers filed with comprehensive fraud documentation, and her carefully constructed life would begin its methodical collapse under the weight of her own documented theft, and the family's complete loss of respect for the woman who'd used our son's college fund to finance her affair, while convincing everyone she was building a legitimate interior design business through networking events that were actually romantic getaways funded entirely by the husband she'd reduced to nothing more than a convenient ATM she could manipulate and dismiss while planning his replacement with someone who excited her more than 19 years of unwavering financial support and emotional devotion ever could. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I didn't go home that night because home was still contaminated with 19 years of what I now understood had been systematic financial exploitation disguised as marriage, still heavy with the ghost of trust I'd never be able to resurrect. So instead I checked into the St. Regis in Manhattan, a neutral space where I could process what I'd just accomplished without the emotional weight of our shared bedroom, our family photos, the kitchen counter where she'd looked me in the eye and told me I was nothing more than a reliable funding source, while secretly planning to take half my business assets through divorce proceedings she'd been orchestrating with Derek's assistance and legal guidance from attorneys who'd gravely underestimated the boring, predictable husband's ability to implement comprehensive asset protection strategies with forensic precision and execute financial justice with devastating effectiveness that would leave her with nothing but the consequences of her systematic betrayal. Patricia Goldman's text arrived at 11:55. All emergency orders executed successfully. Joint accounts frozen except basic living expenses. Credit cards canceled. Business assets fully protected under new corporate structure. Temporary primary custody of Marcus granted to you. She cannot access any marital funds or relocate Marcus without court approval. Comprehensive fraud documentation filed with criminal referral recommended by the judge, who was visibly disgusted by the scope of her systematic theft, and I felt the deep satisfaction of a complex wealth protection strategy completed exactly according to specifications. Every financial vulnerability addressed, every legal contingency planned for, every structural weakness in Catherine's position exploited with the precision I'd learned from decades of protecting client assets from predatory schemes that seemed sophisticated, until the right forensic accountant applied methodical analysis and refused to accept surface explanations that were actually elaborate deceptions designed to hide systematic theft from trusting partners who'd spent years building what their spouses planned to steal. The next morning brought Catherine's predictable desperation. 52 missed calls, 38 voicemails that progressed from shocked anger to sobbing pleas to threats of legal retaliation, each message revealing her complete failure to understand that this wasn't an emotional reaction, but a calculated response to months of systematic financial fraud. That the reliable paycheck she dismissed had been replaced by someone who documented everything, planned every move, and executed justice with the cold efficiency of a controlled demolition that left nothing standing except what deserved to survive, which in this case was my relationship with Marcus, and the business I'd built through 20 years of dedication, while she was planning to steal half of everything through divorce proceedings that would now result in her receiving minimal settlement and maximum public humiliation after her own family had witnessed the scope of her systematic betrayal and calculated cruelty. When I finally returned home that Monday afternoon, I found her in our kitchen, still wearing yesterday's wrinkled clothing, surrounded by empty wine bottles and tear-stained tissues, her phone buzzing constantly with calls from family members who'd witnessed her public destruction. And when she looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes and asked, "How could you humiliate me like that in front of my entire family at Rebecca's wedding?" I simply placed the comprehensive financial audit on the granite counter and said, "You humiliated yourself by stealing $53,000 of our money to fund your affair while telling me I was just a paycheck, and I made sure everyone could see exactly what you'd been hiding, while you convinced them I was a boring, inadequate husband who should feel grateful that you tolerated my financial support for your supposed business development that was actually systematic theft, disguised as entrepreneurial ambition, conducted with breathtaking arrogance and calculated cruelty, that demonstrated complete contempt for the man who'd provided everything for your comfortable lifestyle." The legal proceedings unfolded over the next 7 months with ruthless efficiency, because Amanda Richardson's evidence was unassailable and Patricia Goldman's strategy was flawless, resulting in a settlement that awarded me primary custody of Marcus, our Westchester home, Mitchell Financial Advisory, completely intact and restructured to prevent future predatory claims, and 68% of our marital assets, after accounting for the documented fraud and systematic waste, while Catherine received just enough to start over in a modest apartment, but nowhere near the comfortable divorce she'd calculated with Derek's assistance, her attorney advising immediate acceptance rather than prolonged litigation that would only increase her public humiliation and the risk of criminal prosecution for systematic financial fraud that had been documented with such precision that no jury would interpret it as anything other than premeditated theft disguised as legitimate business expenses. Catherine's interior design business collapsed within 6 weeks as her wealthy Westchester clients learned about the scandal through interconnected social networks. Her reputation for integrity and professionalism destroyed by revelations that she'd been systematically stealing from her own family while using business networking as cover for her affair, leaving her unemployable in the luxury market. She'd spent years cultivating and forcing her to accept entry-level positions at discount furniture stores, where her former clients would never encounter the woman who'd betrayed their trust, along with her husband's unwavering support and financial generosity that had made her comfortable lifestyle and professional success possible in the first place. While Derek faced equally devastating consequences as his own wife filed for divorce with evidence of his role in Catherine's systematic marital fraud, resulting in his losing his consulting business and facing potential criminal charges for conspiracy to commit financial theft. Marcus's reaction, when I sat him down to explain everything after the legal proceedings concluded, demonstrated the maturity that comes from watching a parent's systematic deception with teenage clarity. "Dad, I'm proud of you for protecting us instead of letting her steal everything you worked for, while pretending I was too young to understand what was really happening, because I knew she was lying about those business trips and client meetings. And when she asked me about custody preferences, it felt like she was trying to use me as a weapon against you," which made me realize that someone who would steal from their own family and lie to their own child isn't someone I want making decisions about my future, especially when you've been the parent who actually showed up consistently, while she was busy planning our family's destruction with someone who helped her calculate the most profitable way to betray everything we'd built together through your hard work and sacrifice. 2 years later, Mitchell Financial Advisory had expanded into a prestigious Manhattan office with additional partners specializing in marital asset protection. My reputation for comprehensive fraud investigation and wealth preservation, attracting high-net-worth clients who valued working with someone whose personal experience had taught him every method predatory spouses used to steal marital assets. And I realized that Catherine's betrayal, devastating as it had been, had ultimately freed me from a relationship that had become financial exploitation disguised as marriage, allowing me to focus on building something genuine with people who actually valued integrity loyalty, and the kind of steady reliability she dismissed as boring predictability, while she pursued excitement that lasted exactly as long as the stolen money held out and the legal consequences remained hidden from view. The most unexpected development came when I met Dr. Sarah Chen, a forensic economist whose research on financial fraud in marriages had caught my attention during a professional conference, leading to collaborations that evolved into friendship, then romance built on intellectual compatibility and shared values rather than the desperate materialism that had driven Catherine to destroy everything stable and meaningful in pursuit of excitement, funded by systematic theft. And when Sarah met Marcus, their mutual respect and easy conversation convinced me that some people enter your life not to exploit your success, but to help you appreciate what you've built through honest work and genuine commitment to the people who matter most, creating the kind of authentic partnership that makes previous betrayals seem like necessary lessons rather than permanent damage. 3 years after that devastating evening, when she'd told me I was just a paycheck, Catherine called asking to meet for coffee, and I found her at a downtown White Plains cafe looking older, worn down by consequences, her designer wardrobe replaced by discount clothes that suggested her new financial reality, working as a sales associate at a furniture outlet after her interior design career had been destroyed by the scandal that followed her everywhere. She tried to rebuild her professional reputation, and she apologized with what seemed like genuine remorse, acknowledging that her pursuit of excitement had cost her everything that actually mattered: her family, her reputation, her relationship with Marcus, and most importantly, financial security she'd taken for granted while systematically stealing from the man who'd provided it through 2 decades of unwavering dedication and sacrifice, that she'd dismissed as boring predictability, while planning his destruction with breathtaking arrogance and calculated cruelty that had ultimately cost her everything she'd actually valued once the excitement wore off and the consequences became permanent and irreversible. "I know you'll never forgive me, Jonathan," she said, hands trembling as she stirred her coffee, "but I need you to know that I understand now what I threw away, not just the marriage but the partnership, the security, the life we'd built together, while I convinced myself that you were just a reliable funding source, rather than the man who'd given me everything I needed to pursue the very betrayal that would ultimately destroy everything I'd actually valued about our life together. And Derek turned out to be exactly as shallow and unreliable as you probably knew he was from the beginning, using me just like I used you, except I was too blinded by my own arrogance to see that the boring, predictable husband I dismissed was actually the most valuable thing in my life." And I listened without interrupting, recognizing that her words were meant more for her own healing than my forgiveness. And when she finished, I told her the truth, that I didn't hate her anymore. That anger had been replaced by indifference, that she was simply someone I'd once supported who'd chosen to become a stranger through systematic theft and emotional manipulation, that had taught me the difference between partnership and exploitation, between building wealth together and having it stolen by someone who saw marriage as nothing more than convenient access to resources they'd never earned through their own work and sacrifice. 5 years after she dismissed me as just a paycheck, I stood in my expanded Manhattan office watching Marcus graduate summa cum laude from Columbia, his education funded by the college accounts I'd protected from his mother's systematic theft, while Sarah worked beside me on a research project documenting financial abuse patterns that would help protect other families from the kind of systematic deception we'd survived. And I realized that Catherine's betrayal had taught me that authentic success comes from building something valuable enough to protect, surrounding yourself with people who appreciate what you've accomplished, rather than seeing it as something they're entitled to steal, and understanding that the most expensive lessons in life often come from trusting people who view your generosity as weakness and your reliability as boring predictability that can be exploited indefinitely, until the day they discover that paychecks can be permanently canceled by the people who write them, especially when those people possess the forensic skills necessary to document every theft, implement comprehensive asset protection, and ensure that systematic betrayal results in consequences that extend far beyond the immediate relationship, to encompass everything the betrayer actually valued about the comfortable lifestyle they'd taken for granted while planning the destruction of the man whose work had made it all possible. The woman who'd reduced our 19-year marriage to a financial transaction had learned that treating your spouse like just a paycheck creates permanent consequences. That systematic theft disguised as business expenses constitutes criminal fraud rather than marital disagreement. That trust, once completely shattered, can never be rebuilt, only replaced by legal boundaries that protect everyone from further exploitation. While I had chosen strategic protection over emotional reaction, comprehensive documentation over desperate confrontation, Marcus's future over my past pain, and as I felt the deep satisfaction of a man who'd faced profound betrayal with methodical resolve and emerged not just intact, but stronger, wiser, and financially secure. I knew that sometimes justice isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about protecting what you've built from people who see your success as something they're entitled to steal, ensuring that their systematic betrayal results in consequences that teach them the true cost of reducing partnership to exploitation, love to financial convenience, and marriage to nothing more than convenient access to resources they never earned, but felt entitled to take through calculated deception that ultimately cost them everything they'd actually valued once the reliable funding source they dismissed as boring predictability proved to be far more strategic, ruthless, and financially sophisticated than the predictable husband they'd so casually betrayed, while planning his destruction with the very money he'd earned to build their life together. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.